Okay, so this is the April 2nd video for Applied Math. You're going to be doing interest. Yesterday I had you doing finding the percent sales tax, and then we did some problems where I had you do a meal, and you bought a meal and you had to do the tax and then pay your tip. I'm going to put those answers up so you can check those, make sure you did those correctly. Like I said, you can use your calculator when you're doing the percentages. Obviously some are going to be pretty big numbers with decimals to where when you find them you may have to round. So we're working with change. If you've got the first one, you had to find 8% of 50. Okay, so you had to find an 8% tax of $50 and then pay that sales tax on top of the $50. This one I'm just going to do real quick with the decimal twice. So it's $4 sales tax that you're going to be doing, and so the item was $50. You add in your $4 sales tax and you're going to pay $54 for the item. Okay, so that's where you're finding sales tax of an item. Multiply it, you got your total, you add that to what you're paying, and you would pay $54 when you check out. Let me do the other ones real quick. So $34 and you're finding 7%. Okay, so 34 times 0.07, $2.38. You don't have to round there, that's what it came out to. So you add that to the $34 and you get $36.38. Okay. The next one was 8.2% of $45.50. So you're going to multiply it times 0.082. This one you probably will have to round. Because you get 3.731. Okay, that rounds to $3.73. That stays a 3 because that's 4 or below. So you don't need that there. So you're going to take your original $45.50 and add it to $3.73. Okay. So it should have been $49.23 for that item. So that's paying for the $45.50 for the original item, $3.73 sales tax. You get $49.23. The other ones that I had you do was the meal, and you bought a meal and then you had to pay a tax and then you paid your tip. Now what I noticed what some of you guys did is you were finding when you did the progressive coupon on the one before, when you turn those in, you found like a percent of, like if you walked into a store and you bought a percent off just the sale of the store. Then when you went to use your coupon, I noticed that some of you guys took the coupon off of your original total. And remember I talked about you take the coupon off your new total. This is kind of the same thing. You've got to keep working with a new total. So make sure you're being careful with that. So the first one, you had a $50 meal and you paid 8% tax. So that's just like the first problem we did a while ago. This is going to come out to $4. And so when you go to do your tip, you're not tipping off of $50. You are now tipping off of 50 plus $4, 54. You are going to tip off this new total. Okay, so remember you got to progressively build new totals because you pay your tax first in these problems. Now you don't have to do that in real life. You could tip off the original, like we talked about. Some from Oregon don't pay sales tax, so they tip off of this. But for these problems, like I said, you're going to want to do your tax first, then find your tip off of that new total. So now you're going to find 15%, because we said on this problem we were going to tip 15%. Okay, and so I do 54 times 0.15, and I get 8.1. So my tip was $8.10. Okay, and I'm going to tip that off of, or I'm paying 54. Okay, that was after the tax, and then I'm paying 8.10 or 8.1 in tip. So that's going to come to $62.10. That's going to be my meal total, $62.10. Check your work. If you need to pause it, kind of go through and see what I did. Tax, add the tax in, get the total, take the new total times the tip, take the tip and add it to this total, okay? All right, so let's do another one that I had you do. I had you do a $100 meal at 7.4%. Okay, so you're gonna get $7.40. Okay, that's your tax. Okay, so now you have $107.40 because I took that $7.40 and added it to my total, and that's what I'm going to find my tip off of. And I was going to tip 20% on this problem, so 107.4 times 0.2 equals 21.48. Okay, $21.48 is your tip, and so you're going to add that to your new total. So over here, I can do 107.40 plus 21.48. Okay. Okay. And that's your meal total at that point. Okay. 128.88. Give you a chance to get that. Okay, the last one I had you do was a $75 meal at 9.1%. We said maybe we ate down at the landing. It had a really high sales tax. And so we're going to do 75 times 0.091. And that came to 6.825. Well, our money ends right here, the pennies. So this is actually going to go up a penny because that rounds up. 5 or higher makes this go higher. So it's 6.83 for sales tax. You need to add that to your original $75. Okay. So we got 81.83. That's our new total after sales tax. Now I need to tip off that. The tip was going to be 18%. So times 0.18. So 81.83. And I had you round here. Remember I told you to round first because we were going to find the bill, like if we walked out without paying a tip, they're going to round up there and they're going to charge you that. That's what you have to pay to leave the restaurant. But now we're going to multiply it times 18%. So 81.83 times 0.18 is 14.7294. Okay, so 14.7294. Now, once again, our money ends right here, this 2. It's going to go up a penny. It's going to go up to 3 because that's 5 or higher. So this is 14.73. That's my tip. So I'm going to take my total before my tip and add my tip in. Okay. You get $96.56. So a meal that started out at $75, once you pay tax, once you pay tip, an 18% tip is pretty, standard tip usually. It's going to come to $96.56. So maybe you're seeing during quarantining that sometimes eating out is pretty expensive, although I'm finding out groceries is just as expensive. So anyway, but that's where you're at after all the tax and then tip. So that's the problems I had you do yesterday. That way you can check them, go through. Like I told you, when I'm grading your assignments, I'm kind of going through making sure you're doing them in the correct way. Yes, I see some math mistakes, but I'm not able to correct those on those forms. And there would be not enough time either, but it would just be one of those things where I can look, see that you're on the right track, and then this is the way that you can grade them and make sure you're doing them correctly and check them and go through and fix them. You're getting the points for turning it in, making sure you are turning it in on Google Classroom. I think this class is starting to get that now where they're putting it on the Google Classroom, but just make sure you're doing that. The next thing I want to introduce, and I'm basically going to introduce it, go through some of the notes and stop there, but basically what we're going to look at now is interest. Okay, interest works with percentages like sales tax and like tip and those things I had you do, or sales or coupons. But interest is also something that works with percentages. Interest, you can have a whole class on just interest, and we're just going to basically hit the basic part of it. But interest is something that either when you borrow money or invest money, you earn an interest. Okay, let's take for instance if you borrow money. If I go and use a credit card and I buy like a $500 item or something, I buy a new TV or something. Okay, that bill, $500, I borrow, and then that first month bill comes. Now, usually a credit card won't charge you interest that first month. Some do. Some you actually can do 0% interest for a certain amount of time, like you have a year or something. But on a normal credit card, if you buy a $500 item, that first month, if you pay it off, you don't pay any interest. But after that first month, let's say I only could afford $100 that first month, and I send in my $100 and I pay that. Well, I have $400 sitting on that credit card. They're going to charge me interest for having this money borrowed. They're going to charge me a fee. Credit cards are a business. They're to make money. Whether now there's practices that you can say are bad or unfair and those kind of things, and there's litigation all the time on credit cards for those kind of things. But as far as a business, that's what they are. They have to, they employ people. There's cost for them. They're spending money to lend you, so they're going to charge you fees so that they can be a business, and those fees are in the form of interest, in the way of they make money off what you borrowed. So I'm not going to have to just pay back $400 now. I'm going to have to pay interest as well. And let's say they charge me just 10%. Usually it could be more. Some get up as high as 20, 30%. Some get lower, 5, 6%. But let's say they charge me 10%. That means they're going to charge me $40 to have that borrowed that first month. Okay. And so not only do I have to pay the $400 that I borrowed, because let's say I paid $100 that first month, I had a little bit saved back, I paid it, but I still owe $400. Well, now they're going to charge me $40 interest. So that second month, I don't owe $400, I owe $440. And let's say that next month, I only can pay $100, okay? And so now I'm down to $340, but they charge me the 10% interest again. Okay, so now it's $34 more. And so now the next month I pay $384. So now, each time I'm paying $100, yes, I'm paying it down, and this time it was only $34. Last time it was $40, but I keep getting charged interest. So they've made $40, then they made $34, and the next month they may make more. I mean, it just continues on. That's why borrowing can become very, very expensive, because you could rack up a lot of interest. Now, sometimes there's reasons you have to do it. You maybe don't have that for that month, and you have to borrow, and you pay it off. But that's the thing of borrowing. There's interest. Another thing that you could work with interest, though, is when you invest money. So maybe I go and put $1,000 in a bank, okay, and I put that money in there and I don't touch it, I don't take it out, or even if you've got one that just gives you interest on what you have left in there, they're going to give you money for investing that money. Okay, they're going to, maybe you have an investment rate that you're getting money put in as long as you don't touch it, don't take money out. And so you could maybe earn some money where the next month, if you don't touch it, you have maybe $1,100 in there. You got $100 put in there from interest. And then if you leave that alone, maybe $100, and as it sits there, it's gaining money. Okay, that's an interest where you're investing money, you're putting money into a bank or an investment, and it's earning money just by being there. Okay, so that's also interest. We're going to mainly work with borrowing, though. We're going to work with both, but it's just in that simple form. Now, that credit card one I did would be more what we fall into called compound interest or compound interest, where it keeps growing and it goes off the new total. So like one month it was $400 and I was charged interest, but then the next month because I paid a little bit down, it charged interest on the next one and then on the next one. That's called compound interest, where it builds. Simple interest is what we're going to be working with mainly, is just a simple interest rate, and there's a simple formula for it that you can put in an amount of money, and we're going to learn what that's called, or borrow a certain amount of money, and it's on a fixed rate. So there's just a percentage the whole time on an amount of time, okay? And so we're going to look at what that formula is and work with simple interest, okay? So taking notes, this is a new topic, interest. We're going to look at simple interest and talk about what that formula is. The formula, and you're going to want to highlight this so that you can keep coming back to it, is interest, or I, equals PRT. I equals PRT, okay? And we're going to talk about what these letters stand for, but I is interest. So when you're trying to find out how much interest you earned by investing or how much interest you have to pay by borrowing, this is what is going to come out for your total, okay? Interest equals PRT. So make sure you've got that written down. Now, here's what those letters stand for. The I, like I said, stands for interest. Okay, the P stands for principal. Okay, the R stands for rate. And the T stands for time. Okay, interest equals principal, rate, time. Now we know from pre-algebra and even some math lab that when letters are written by each other, that means you multiply them. There's no plus signs in between here or minus signs. So when they're written by each other, you're going to multiply it. So principal times rate times time. Okay, you're going to multiply those three numbers times each other. Also, another thing to point out is because they're multiplication, it does not matter what order you multiply them in. Okay, so when you go to put them in your calculator, as long as you're doing this number times this number times this number in some order, it will come out to the interest. Okay, so it doesn't matter, you know, if you work from here and hit your time times your rate times your principal, it's going to come out to the same answer. But we write it as principal times rate times time. Okay, now here's what those words stand for, because now we know what the letters stand for. Now we need to know what the words stand for. So your interest is what you're trying to find. This is what you either have to pay back or that you earn. So this is your interest right here. This is what you're trying to find. Did I earn $300 from the money sitting in there, or do I have to pay $300 for what I borrowed? The principal is what you borrow, the amount that you borrow or invest. Okay, so if we're working on a problem on borrowing, maybe I borrowed $1,000, or maybe I borrowed $10,000 to buy a car or something, or maybe I invested $10,000 in the bank or something. This is the amount that you put in or that you borrow. So that's your principal. So when I go to borrow, make a loan, and I borrow $10,000, that's the number that goes right here. Okay. The rate is the percent that you are being charged or that you're investing, that you're making. So it's the percentage. This is where the percent comes in that we're doing. So let's say you borrow and you're being charged 7%. It's going to be a percentage. So that means when you go to put it in your calculator, you're going to have to turn that into a decimal, like 0.07. Okay, that's what all these problems, you notice we've come back to where we're working with a percentage. Okay, whether we're doing taxes, whether we're doing sales tax, tip, we're coming back to where we're having to turn that into a decimal. The time is the amount of time that you've set for your problems. Now, on the most common on these, we're working with years. So for 4 years, for example, or 5 years, or 10 years maybe, or a year, just one. So this is the amount of time by years that you have borrowed the loan or that you have invested money. Now this is what I was talking about. This is simple, meaning it's not compounding each year that it changes and the next year you've got a new total and it builds off that. This is just one simple interest, meaning you're charged 1% the whole time off just the amount of the principal for that duration of time that you have the loan or that you have the investment. Okay? Now I'll do a problem at the end kind of that what happens when it's not an exact year, like maybe 20 months or something like that, instead of being a full year. And we'll do one example of that. Okay, but I want you to have this here. Okay, let me rewrite that at the top and do a few problems. So I equals PRT, interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, so let me do an example of that. Let's say I borrow $3,000. So I'm trying to find, this is what I'm trying to find, my interest. I borrow $3,000. That's my principal, that's what I borrowed. And let's say I got 7%, I was charged 7% to do that. And let's say I did it for 4 years. Okay, so a lot like the one I just showed you. So I'm gonna find out what do I have to pay in interest. I know I have to pay this back eventually, the amount that I borrow, but I'm going to be charged this for 4 years, and I'm going to see what my interest comes out. So I got to find out what I have to pay on top of this. Okay, so let me put that into the calculator. It's going to be, just so you know what you're putting into the calculator, 3,000 times point. This is times 0.07 times 4. Okay, so let's put that in and see what we come up with. Okay, and I get 840. So you're going to put 3,000 times 0.07 times 4. Just leave that in there. I'll show you what I did. I did 3,000 times 0.07 times 4. Okay, so you're just going to work. It comes out to $840. That's the interest I have to pay back besides the $3,000 I borrowed. So when I ask for interest, just the interest, you're going to say 840. If I ask for, well, what's the total you have to pay back? Well, not only do you have to pay the 840 interest, you have to pay back the 3,000 that you borrowed. So you put those two together, and you're going to pay $3,840 at the end of that loan. Okay? It lets you know a little bit how much interest can cost you. Even at a low rate and a modest amount borrowed, it could cost you $840 after waiting 4 years, okay? So let's do another one. Let's do one as an investment, just to show you it works under the same thing. So investment, let's say I invested $10,000, okay? So that's, I'm trying to find my interest. Interest equals $10,000 times the rate. Let's say I get a 2% rate, okay? And I go for 2 years. So when I go to put this in, I'm going to do 10,000 times 0.02 times 2. Okay? So let's put that in. 10,000 times 0.02 times 2, I get 400. So not only do I have what I invested, but I get $400 as interest, and I'll put it over here so that we keep it in the formula. But I get $400 on top of the $10,000 I invested. I get that back. You know, if I go into the bank and say, "Hey, I want this money back," you get that back with the $400 interest that you earned. And you say, "Well, why is that lower than the 840 the other one?" Because this is a lot more money I invested than 3,000. Well, your percent was lower. It wasn't 7%, and you didn't keep it in as long. Remember, we borrow for 4 years. This we only had in for 2 years. So it kind of shows you how the numbers affect each other, okay? The last one I want to put in, and just have you put in your notes so you have some examples, is let's go back to borrowing, and let's say I borrow, I'm trying to find my interest, and I borrow $6,000, and I get a 5%, but let's say it's for 18 months. Okay, I want to do one that's not a perfect year, or 2 year, or 10 years or something, not a perfect even year. So we got to find out how we're going to put this in. Well, when I go to put in my calculator, I'm still going to do 6,000, and I'm still going to do times, and I'll put times, 0.05, but I'm not going to do times 18 because that'd be like hitting in 18 years. So I've got to turn this into what it would be as years. Well, 12 months is a year. So 12 months is 1 year, and I'm left with 6 months left over. Well, 6 months is half a year. You know, if 12 months is a year, 6 months is half a year. Well, the way to express a half, remember to put in a calculator, is 0.5. Okay, remember that's when we talked about a half is 0.5 or 50%. Well, so it's 1 full year, and half a year is 1.5. So that's a year and a half. When you're talking in terms of years, 18 months is 1.5. So that's what I'm going to put into my calculator. Okay, so let's see that. 6,000 times 0.05 times 1.5, and I get 450. Okay, 450. Remember, 400 was the last one. Well, this one's higher because the percent was higher. Okay, so that makes a big difference when that percent goes from 2% to 5%. You're almost doubling. So, and this is not much lower than $10,000. Okay, and this isn't much lower than 2. So that's where your difference was made up, was right there. Okay, what I'm going to do is, for this assignment, I kind of want to stop there. This is a longer video. Plus, you guys have been working really well this first week, and I know with the new changes, there's been a lot of just extra work you guys, I'm sure, are doing, and some of you took more classes. And so I wanted to just kind of have you take notes today. I am still going to have you do an assignment just because that's how I count your attendance, and it gives you points. What I want you to do is take a photo of your notes. Okay, there's no problems except for the example problems that I did. But I'm not going to have you. We'll get some more practice next week, but I just want you to take a photo of your notes. I want to make sure you got this formula and the notes through there, and then upload that to the assignment. Now, just a reminder, your assignment on the Google Classroom is blank. There's no form. Now, some of your other teachers, depending on the class, can send you like, hey, answer these questions, and they can put those questions on there. Or they can, have you submit a document, say, here's the document. Math is a little bit harder to do that because there's no Google Forms for math problems. And so, when you click on it, it looks blank, but then you go, just like I showed in that video, you go to add and create, and you go to link, and you upload your photo. That's what you're doing to do the assignment. And most of you guys are doing that now. So for today's, just upload your notes, okay? Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.